Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I don't know about you, but I was scrolling on Goodreads and was looking at the Goodreads Choice Awards for 2024 and looking to see which books that won that I've read and which ones I haven't. And I thought it would be fun to do a video where I read some of the Goodreads Choice Award winners that I haven't read yet and see if they are worth the hype. Because the ones that I have read, I also would agree that the winners, like, for example, Funny Story won romance, and I also would agree that Funny Story was one of the best romance books that I read in 2024. So, with that said, there are a couple genres that I have not read the winner for, so I thought, let's do a video about it. The first genre that I'm going to be reading is historical fiction. The winner of the 2024 Goodreads Choice Awards was The Women by Kristen Hanna, and I have not read The Women by Kristen Hanna yet, so this will be the first book I will be reading in this video, and I am so excited to get into it. I don't know much about it. I like to go into books blindly, so I know that it is set during the Vietnam War, I believe. Yes, the Vietnam War, and it follows women during that time period. I don't know how many women, but I've only read one other book by Kristen Hanna, and it broke me and made me cry so hard, but it was also one of the top books of 2024. And that was The Nightingale. So I'm expecting this book to also wreck me. It was my best friend's top book, her favorite book of 2024. So let's start reading, shall we? So it has been a couple days. Yesterday I didn't film anything while I was reading because I only read at night when I got home from work. So didn't get to film a whole bunch yesterday, but I am now on page 138. So I thought I would give you a little bit of an update and my thoughts going into this book. I am really enjoying it. This is my first book set in Vietnam War. I usually, when I read historical fiction books, they're usually, majority of the time, probably like 95% of the time, or 90 to 95% of the time, they are set during World War II. So that's new to me, having it be a Vietnam War. My first book ever written in there. I've read a couple other historical fictions about some other time periods, but first Vietnam War. And I also am really enjoying it because it is set, it's like the main character is a nurse in the war, and so you get to see that side of things, which I also don't get to see a ton of in historical fiction books that I read, because like the World War II ones, they're either like The Nightingale is just two different people during it in that time period, but then I also will read ones where it's like, you know, they're just like normal people, or World War II, like The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, which I haven't read yet, but it's like they are in a concentration camp type thing. I've never really read a historical fiction where you get to see the nurse side of things. With that being said, though, it definitely can be hard to read at times because you're seeing all of the wounds firsthand, and they describe some of them. And so you're getting to see people with their legs blown off or giant holes in their chest from bombs and just like all these things. That side of things can be a little bit more challenging to read, just because it's a little bit, not gruesome, because it's not very gruesome, but it's just like seeing that side of the war is just kind of hard. But I'm enjoying it. I am now on page 283. I just got to part 2. And I thought we would chat a little bit before I sit down and read today. I think it is really interesting getting to see how people were treated after coming home from Vietnam. Especially the women, they were treated so terribly after coming home, because in that time period, obviously, women weren't able to go to war besides being like a nurse. And even then, like, her dad was like fully ashamed of her for going and lied about where she was to everyone in their town. So I think it's been really interesting getting to see that, and I feel so bad for Frankie, the main character, because literally anything and everything bad that could happen happens to her, either while she's in Vietnam or once she comes home. Like, literally her life is falling apart. So I'm excited to see how she figures her stuff out. So, let's get reading. Finished The Women last night. Thought I would give you my thoughts on it. I enjoyed it a lot. I'm giving it a 4.75 star. I know that's very specific, but I really enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. And the only reason I'm not giving it a 5 star is because everything that happens to the main character, Frankie, just starts feeling unrealistic by the end of it because of how much bad stuff was happening to her. But overall, I thought it was a really great book. I loved getting to see a wartime story told from a nurse's perspective, and I also just really enjoyed getting to hear about Vietnam, because I have never read a book set in Vietnam time before, so I thought that was really cool. And yeah, I definitely cried a time or two while reading this, but I definitely understand why it was the Goodreads Choice Award for historical fiction. Moving on to the next book, we are doing the Good Choice Awards. We're going to just the plain fiction genre, and we will be reading The Wedding People. I did start this morning. I only read the first chapter though. But this one follows a girl who goes to a hotel to end her life, and every other guest at this hotel is there for this big extravagant wedding, and the bride, I believe, tries to like talk the girl out of it. Not 100% sure. Like I said, I'm only a chapter in, but this is the next book that we will be reading. Okay, I have a little bit of an update on The Wedding People. I am about 50% done with the book, and I will say it was really hard to get into at first. It is very heavy, which I kind of expected because the little bits that I've heard people talk about this book already, they mentioned that it's really heavy at the beginning. So I knew going into it that it was going to be a lot, but it was still a little bit more than what I was expecting. So it was just a little bit harder. Plus I'm really anticipating Onyx Storm coming out in a couple days, so that also could have put me into a little bit of, not a slump, but it was just hard to get through. Especially, they're also really long chapters, which I prefer short chapters. Like, literally the last chapter I read started on page, let's see. The last chapter I read was literally this big, which can't really even tell, but it started on page 149 and didn't end until 174. So, and that's like all the chapters are that long, and I prefer shorter chapters. So that has also made it a little bit challenging, not challenging, but a rougher start, I guess you could say. The first whole like 50, or not 50%, because I'm at 50%. The first like 25% of the book is definitely leading up to the main character. I don't know if I mentioned what it's about. I think I did. But the main character books a night at a hotel to commit suicide. And the whole first 25% is like leading up to that night. And then I don't want to give away anything. But it's now after that point, so she's kind of learning how to live again, which that part has been really interesting to see, especially there's like the whole wedding going on, and well, leading up to it, because it's a wedding week. So I think I just got to Tuesday, or I just got to Thursday. And I don't know what day the wedding's on. I'm assuming the wedding is on Saturday, because that just makes the most sense in my mind. Either Saturday or Sunday, I would assume. Sunday. The wedding is on Sunday. I just found it in the book. But getting to see her kind of live again, and the bride kind of befriends her, that's been really fun to read about. So I am excited to keep going, and I've mapped it all out to figure out how many pages I have to read a day in order to finish this book before Tuesday, because Onyx Storm comes out on Tuesday, and if I'm in the middle of this, I will be putting it on pause to immediately read Onyx Storm. So I would like to try to finish this before Onyx Storm, so that I am not putting it on pause and I could just start Onyx Storm fresh slate. So I'm going to keep reading, and I don't know if I'm going to update you again within the last 50%, because I don't know how much more is going to happen besides her just like learning to relive until like the end. So I think I will just keep reading. I'll update you either further into the book or once I'm finished with it, but we shall see. I finished The Wedding People yesterday, so I thought I would hop on, give you my thoughts, and wrap up the video. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. It was okay. Definitely check the trigger warnings for this book, because the beginning of this book especially is very heavy, and there's definitely topics talked about that could trigger some people. So if you are wanting to read this book and you do get triggered easily by things, I would check the trigger warnings. It's very heavily about depression. There's infertility, divorce, a bunch of stuff that's going on in this book. So take that with a grain of salt, but I ended up giving it 3 stars. It was alright. It was entertaining. The first 25% of the book or so was really hard for me to get into, because that's when it's the heaviest topics. My nose is really itchy. But after the like halfway point, it did get interesting, and it was really interesting getting to see the main character kind of learn how to relive her life after being in the deepest depression of her life. And that was really inspiring and cool to see. Just learning to be happy again and being okay with being happy again. So I liked that aspect of the book, which is why it's not lower than a 3 star, but definitely not, but I definitely didn't like it enough to rate it any higher than a 3 star. So there's that. So the 2 books that we ended up reading in this video was The Women by Kristen Hanna and The Wedding People. I definitely liked The Women more than I liked The Wedding People, but I'm happy I read both of them. And I definitely understand why this one won the Good Choice Awards. This one, I could see why people really enjoy this one, but it just personally wasn't my type of book. But I can see why people loved this one. So I also understand why this one won the Choice Awards as well. I personally wouldn't have picked it for the winner, but I understand why people did. So that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching me read some of these books. If you've read either of these books, let me know your thoughts on them in the comments below. And I would love for you guys to tell me any other book ideas, reading vlogs that you would love to see this year. And I will see you in the next one.